here we are, and as I said before, Ivan and I have known each other over 50 years. When I was working, you've heard my testimony before, when I was working as a jockey, the place I worked in, Janet worked there also. And my first sight of Ivan was coming to the front door and knocking the door, and I went and opened it. This was the cottage that we stayed in. And here's this wee boy standing outside, 14 years of age. There's my sister there, because she was going home for the weekend. So that was my first introduction to Ivan. So, like I say, he's become more than a brother in the Lord to me. He's more of a brother than, I'll be honest, my own brothers are, because I never see them. But Ivan's always been there for me. Anyway, he has a great testimony, and he's much appreciated. Now, any photographs? We'll start off here. Right, Ivan, now, we're going to look now. There's a photograph here. Now, do you recognise anybody in that?
Well, I don't remember that photograph being taken, to be honest, but the youngest baby in the middle there is my dad, and some of his brothers and sisters and his mum there. So that's the earliest, one of the earliest pictures I have of my dad. I think there's more after that. Yeah. So again, there's my dad starting to grow up. That's my grandfather on my dad's side. He was quite a strict man. He went to Craig Gospel Hall, but men were stricter in those days. It was harder life. There was little latitude for messing about much. It was just work, and so he's maybe a bit stricter, but fair,
Play by the rules, sort of thing.
I didn't really get to know him very well. I was 14 when he died. So, but this is my dad again as a wee boy in the streets of Belfast.
In that picture, you can see the likeness.
Yeah, that's my dad there, and he was a wee bit of an imp, I think.
He looks it. now I know where you got it from. Yeah.
And then on the other side, that's my mum. She wasn't my mum there. That's before she.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, who's that in the back there? I mean, you think.
Yeah, I think
twin buggies are really nowadays. Look at this.
I know. I think that was Victoria Park in Belfast. My parents are both from Belfast, and were evacuated during the war and so on. But that's some early pictures of my mum. Then I think the next picture is also that's my mum on the far left there of your photograph, and then and then her sister and others. But that's my grandfather, Papa, who is sitting there on the right hand side, and he was blind from he was a young boy. He was blinded. A horse was eating. The butcher's horse was eating out of a nose bag, and he was playing around the horse, and some of the corn got in his eyes, and I think the last thing he remember seeing was running towards his parents' house, and he totally lost his sight. So he never saw his first wife, who died, second wife, any of his children, or indeed me. But you couldn't sneak into a room without him knowing.
No, you would know.
And he was a very kindly man, but had a difficult life too. Now.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't have been easy, because he had a bad foot too, and
yes, he had a club foot.
And the blindness. But obviously, a good godly man he was, though.
Yeah. Well, he was a Baptist, but we'll not hold that against him.
He had to go somewhere, I suppose. And where's this? That looks a bit like Donaghadee, am I right?
That is Donaghadee Harbour, and that's my father. As you might, I told you, he was a bit of an imp, so he's making his way up the pole of the mast of the boat. That's a Sunday school excursion out to Rathlin, I think,
right.
From what he told me at the time. So
Donaghadee wouldn't have been Rathlin, but the Copeland.
Not the Copeland, sorry.
The long boat ride to the Rathlin from there. And there's your.
Yeah.
There's a young adult Hitler there.
Yes.
And your dad again.
It was. I think it was that time. That would have been in the 30s. Late 30s. So.
When Hitler was just making his mark.
Yeah. So yeah. So. Yeah. My dad was. He was saved a bit as a late teenager. But that's my dad on the left, and my mum just before they were married, I think. So. I love that picture of my mum. I think she looks so nice in that.
I know, she's so young.
Yeah.
She didn't know what she was getting into.
They say you marry somebody like your mother, and I sometimes look at my mum and think,
See Gillian there, do you?
Yeah. But anyway. Willie Mullen. You know who he was?
Pastor William.
Pastor Willie Mullen. Yeah, tramp after God he was known as, but he led many people to Christ. But his first wedding, and he nearly fell down with nerves, was my mum and dad's. Yeah, and interesting in that picture too, there's a young girl in third or fourth on the left, and she's my cousin, and she's also Gillian's aunt. So work that one out. We didn't discover that till we were married, but it was okay. It was through marriage, so we're all right. Although it maybe does explain some of the children, but anyway.
Oh, Drew, you've got to speak to this man sometime.
So this is them. It's either just on their honeymoon or just going out. So my mum's about 19, 20 there, 19 or 20, yeah. Yeah. These pictures.
Now your dad, he had his own business, motorbike shop and all that. Now, that's Belfast, isn't it?
Yeah.
He had one in Newton Ours as well, though, at one time.
I'm not too sure. I think he had 3 at one time.
Yeah, whereabouts in Belfast is this now?
One of them was on the Castlereagh Road, and I just can't quite remember where the other 2 might have been. But anyway, they were in Belfast, and at that time, people rode motorbikes. Mm. But it was just on the change where people were starting to get a bit more money and were able to buy cars. Mm. So it wasn't a good time to open up 3 motorcycle shops, I think.
No. Mm. But in a different world, your dad, he had this business thing, and yet he could have been. I mean, we know in later life what he could have done.
Yes, of course.
I mean, he had that business brain and that push and drive.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, your dad was a good Christian man too. This one here now, is this a Sunday school class or something?
Yeah, he had a Sunday school class. Interestingly enough, I happened to show this to somebody in work, a mechanic who worked in our place, and he said, "That's me in the front row."
Right.
He said, "Sam McKeown, he was my Sunday school teacher."
There you are.
And I only discovered that a couple of years ago. It was very interesting.
I mean, people say it's a small world, but seriously, when somebody points that out to you. Yeah, now here's a good one here. Now, I think I've seen this photograph once before.
Yeah, well, when my dad got saved, he had led a bunch of boys around Belfast up to all kinds of trouble. But when he got saved, then
he started to lead them out of trouble.
Yeah, he led them out of trouble. He led some of them to the Lord, you know. And this is a bunch of them going around with a soapbox, with a, you know, what do you call it? Dad called that?
Well, it's like
a soap cart or something.
It looked like one of those you see in a soapbox race.
Yeah, but he had gospel verses on it and went around Belfast. Like that, yeah.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And that was Grey Abbey Girls Choir. The very eagle-eyed might notice a face or two in there somewhere, but I can't even see them from here. But you see your mum and dad anyway.
Yeah, I think there's a lady there who's dying to be your wife in there somewhere as well.
Oh, I was sure she knew that even then. Even though I didn't know her. But.
My parents loved music. You know, my mother was a pianist and organist. My dad was a choir master. In fact, Janet was reminding me today that at one time he had 5 choirs going.
Unbelievable.
He started some of you of an older age might remember the Ard's Male Voice Testimony Choir. And they travelled all around. They were in Norway and all around Ireland. But he started that. You know, several choirs, and this was Grey Abbey Girls Choir. Now, it wasn't. They weren't a particularly Christian. They weren't said it was a Christian choir. It was just to give the girls in Grey Abbey an avenue, and he taught so many girls in Grey Abbey how to sing, and we still bump into girls from the old Grey Abbey Girls Choir who remember competing and doing all kinds of. They did do church things as well. But, yeah.
Lovely photograph. You'll notice that guy throwing the bowl there. A lot of people, maybe. Enoch Powell. You've heard of him anyway.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, Dad was always to make an opportunity, so a photo opportunity. He was very friendly with the Chronicle photographer, and he was forever finding an opportunity to get himself in it. Well, not to get what he was interested in the paper. Should it be the choir or whatever it was? And Enoch Powell was a fete in Grey Abbey, Rosemount House, and Enoch Powell. It was actually the day. And again, this will be maybe over your head, but it was the day he made a declaration on the unilateral declaration in Rhodesia. Yeah, and that was the day, that was where he made it in Rosemount in Grey Abbey. But Dad was more interested in getting a picture of him throwing a bowl. So, UDI, that was what's called. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant.
And that's there's a little girl in the middle there. Don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it?
Well, that's my younger sister, Melody.
Oh, there you are now.
And there's actually a reason why she's called Melody. She's here tonight, of course. There she is. Yeah, it does. And my mum and dad were singing so much and so much involved in music. They loved music. That Dad insisted when this little girl was born that she would be called Melody. So yeah.
When worse, you could have called her piano or something.
Yeah, so
Melody was quite good though.
yeah. and that's just a picture. If you've met my mum and dad,
That's
more familiar with that.
that's one of the most recent ones. I mean, that was your mum and dad that I knew.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just come back around. Now, here's a young chap here, is it?
Yeah, I don't know why they
Do
dress
you-
boys in dresses in those days.
Do you remember anything of that?
Actually, I don't.
That's funny enough. Now. Anyway, that was Ivan when he was
That's the
Just
RV.
born,
I
and
was
then
born in the
from-
RV8. Yeah.
when you were born. Where did you live then?
Well, we were brought up. No, I wasn't brought up. Janet was for a couple of years, and they bought a house as well as having a business. They bought a house in Portala Street off the Craiger Road in Belfast. Still there today, and no, I was only a month or two
That's
old.
not it, by the way.
No, that's not it. No, I was only a month or two old whenever we left that, and again because of my dad's business not making it, he had to sell everything, and rent a tin roofed house on the Mount Stewart Road,
This is it.
a place called Cochrane's Lane, if you know it, towards the end. That wee house is still there today. And we lived there for a couple of years, just with very rudimentary. There wasn't much there.
Facilities, not
No.
great. And then from there, you just moved on to Grey Abbey, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's just some pictures of it. We called it Primrose, or my mum called it Primrose Cottage. It was a very nice name for maybe a cold enough
That
place.
last picture there was just adorable of you.
Oh, I know.
In your little romper suit.
Oh,
look,
yeah.
look at him. What does he look like?
I know.
Now, the girl beside him looks good now. But look at that wee boy. And there he is. Is that a boy or a girl? That's you, eh?
Yeah.
In your little bonnet.
Yeah.
And here we are in Grey Abbey. What age were you there now?
Right, we moved to Grey Abbey whenever I was about 3, I suppose, around that age. And there was a new bunch of houses built at the Green in Grey Abbey. If you know Grey Abbey, you know where the Green is, opposite what used to be Morrison's shop. And these new houses were built by the council, and they were all brand new. And we moved in there. I'd have been, as I say, about 3 and a half. And of course, it was all very exciting getting to live in a new village and a new house. Yeah.
And you just didn't stay there forever, though. You just moved on again to.
No, when I was 9, then we moved out. My mum and dad just thought it would be better for the children to move out of the village, and we went to Ballybrian Road.
Yeah.
So the top picture there is Ballybrian Road.
I remember it well. That's when I got to know the family.
Yeah,
then.
that's right. Yeah,
I really loved it up there too. It
Yeah.
was great. And I know you and Janet had great fun up there.
yeah, yeah.
And so did Melody too.
And then the house below, which is not a very good picture, but that's Dover Road where my mother died there then. So
Yeah.
we ended up there. Yeah.
But there you are. There's shaving on his wee. What would you call those?
I used to dye my hair blonde. You see that?
Used to help her.
Yeah.
Here we are now. The Ballywalter Presbyterian.
Yeah, that's why the hymns the choruses and hymns I chose tonight, that really takes me back to the days in the Presbyterian Church. That hymn always really challenged me. Looking, yield not to temptation, and the chorus in particular, just always challenged me. It was a very popular hymn back then. And that's you'll maybe, if you know the Orr twins or David Orr there in the front, or there's Billy Orr, William Orr, there's different
And
ones.
then David's beside them.
Yeah, Janet's there. I'm there just in front of
Yeah. And
there.
I noticed
So that was our Sunday school.
There
there.
from the right in the back row, a young James Cahy.
Yes, James Cahy, who, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's people there you'll know, folks. Who,
Yeah.
And Derek, are you in that picture? No, you're too young.
Derek wasn't born, but that's
Wasn't
okay.
born.
So we say.
Probably won't.
So yeah, this is up at Ballybrand now.
Yeah, well, that's the three of us.
Top
Then.
left wouldn't have been Ballybrand, would it?
No, that's not. No, it's
No.
Grey Abbey.
That's great, yeah. And over to the right now, we're in Ballybrand here. Oh, sitting on a gate, obviously.
Yeah.
And I notice you've got your arms all.
Oh
plastered
yes.
up.
When I was about 14, we were tying a big tractor tire up onto the bough of a tree so it would make a great swing. And so we put the back tractor tire up onto a chair, put a rope up onto the bough, and I'm hanging over the bough about 15, 18 feet up, tying the rope, and the tractor tire toppled off the chair, tightening the rope, pulling my legs, and I went head first onto the ground, smashing both my wrists. They were very severe fractures. I remember pushing myself up and thinking, how come I'm not that far off the ground? And then realising my palms were looking at me because the bones were so badly broken.
And I would imagine Melody was very sympathetic towards you whenever you were being cheeky to her at some stage. But we'll say no more about that.
Say no more. What was at the time?
But good days, good days. Now here's another wee interesting thing about Ivan. Is ever anybody old enough to remember Tea Time with Tommy? Yeah? Ivan was on it, believe it or not. So there he is.
Yeah.
Did you can you remember it?
I don't know if anybody remembers
Can
Tea
you remember
Time with Tommy.
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah. I was 1968. I was on it. On a positive note, I did get an entertainment badge for my Cub Scout uniform. That's the positive thing about it, and a £2 book token.
Yeah, very good.
Or no, it was 50. It was 10 shilling book token. 10 shillings, 50p. But anyway, I was told I sang "My Body Lies Over the Ocean," but I was told that on the second verse to wait to come in because there would be an introduction. But whether I was nervous or what, as soon as the music started, I started to sing. But it wasn't the music for me to sing by, it was just an introduction. So the whole orchestra faded to a stop, and it was live television then, of course. So the orchestra looked at me, Tommy looked at me, and then the orchestra started again. I thought, well, there's the music starting again, let's sing again. So, for years afterwards, I mean like for 15 years afterwards, people would say, were you the boy in Tea Time with Tommy?
That they couldn't get to shut up.
Yeah.
Lovely. Now, yeah.
That was the Cub Scouts in Grey Abbey, and that's I'm there somewhere in the front or somewhere.
Yeah, is there, Janet pointed out to me, is there a young David Harrison here somewhere?
Yes,
as well?
indeed, because David Harrison and I were the
Harrison's-
best of friends. There's David
There
there.
he is there.
There's a young David. Because I lived on Ballybrand Road, he was across the fields, and as often as not, I'd be across at the farm helping feed the pigs. They kept a lot of pigs in those days. And and he was in the Cubs with me.
Yeah, lovely.
Cub Scouts.
Oh. This is, well, Nathan was more than 14 there. That was obviously a few years later,
Yeah.
but that was at Ballybrand. So, yeah,
That's the little and large show.
yeah. And there's the large and larger show. That was me after oh, that was Dunover Road, wasn't it, Ivan?
Well, yeah, and we
Yeah.
are getting the car ready because not very long after this engine that we've just put into the car is going to have to drive my future wife and I all the way around Scotland. But that's another story.
If Gillian knew what was going into that car, she wouldn't have got into it. And there's a young Scot looking up at you. Now, finding your faith, Ivan, well, you didn't find it on the motorbike, did you?
No, but there's a reason that's there.
And what is the,
Well,
the story behind
My
that?
parents didn't have a lot of money, really, and but yet I remember they did put money into sending us to camps and things like that.
Yes.
And Scripture Union camp ran various camps, but they ran one at the Isle of Arran and on the Mull of Kintyre. But it was that's where I've been brought up in a Christian family, and I understood the gospel, and you know, I would have believed I was a Christian, and maybe even with my dad had said the sinner's prayer kind of thing whenever I was a young boy. But it was at camp in 1974 at Slittery Waterfoot. That's the name of, and the picture at the bottom there is Drew and Alan. We went back over whenever they were wee boys, and I hiked them around the island, and I wasn't the only person to hike around that island, Derek Reid, but that's another story. And at Slittery Waterfoot, there was tents, and can I just tell you a story about Charlie?
Go ahead, yeah, Charlie.
Maybe I've told you this before. 1974, there was all the different officers in the camp. There was Sporty, who did sports, Banky, who looked after your money, Snappy, who took the photographs, Adji, who was the adjutant, Commy, who was the commandant of the camp, and about 120 boys. And it was just canvas camps, and we dug our latrines and we swam in the sea, and it was very rudimentary, but it was great fun for wee lads. But these young men would stand up and talk about Jesus in a way that was real, not a religious way, not like a thee thou and follow regular. It was real.
I remember that too from the camp I went to with Brooklands,
And it was real. People were living this. And there was an officer at that particular camp, and he was an older man now. Now looking back at it, he's probably only late 40s or something, but compared to all the other officers who were 20 and so on, he was an older man. He had been a boxer and had had a hard life, and he was a cook, or a chef rather, in the Europa Hotel. And they asked him along to help out. He just got saved, and they asked him to come along to help out at camp. And then one night they asked him, we're going to ask Cookie to say something. And he did, and he found it really hard. He wasn't used to speaking. And I remember tears running down his face as he simply said to us boys, he said, boys, give your lives to Jesus. And don't be like what I've done. He had a past. He said, boys, while you're young, give your lives to Jesus. And I went to my tent. It was tent number 8. And I lay down my sleeping bag. It was a brown sleeping bag. And I asked Jesus into my heart. And I believe that's where the Lord saved me that night. Really, truly saved me, that I really understood and accepted him as Saviour. Yeah. But there's a back end to that story. I think I told you, didn't I?
I think you mentioned it at one stage. Go ahead,
well, I was speaking in a church in Carrickfergus about 35 years later. And I mentioned my testimony, just how this cook at camp, Charlie Cosgrove, and afterwards 3 older people in their late 70s come up to me and said, Charlie Cosgrove? I said, yes. Was a cook in the Europa? I said, yes. He said, he goes to this church. This is his fellowship. Now he's very old, he's very infirm, and he's in a nursing home. But tonight we are driving straight up and we're going to tell him, because we remember him coming back from that camp, and he was so defeated. He said, look, they asked me to speak one night, and they were all young students and all very eloquent, and I stood up and made a whole mess of it, and I just he just felt defeated. And he said that he never knew that night a young boy gave his life to Christ and is living on for. And I love to. I didn't get to see him, and he's passed away now. But I love to think that the Lord blessed him when he heard that news.
So, yeah. It just shows you, though. Sometimes it's the simplest words is all you need.
And you just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
You think you've made a mess of things.
Yeah, you don't know the impression that you've left behind. Yeah. But I mean, his.
But he was faithful. He was faithful. Was the point?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right, and here we are. Now you've moved on. New beginnings.
Well, this isn't me, obviously. That's Ivan McKeown and Stephen Thompson, and there was a couple, and Ronnie later joined us.
Yeah.
And in fact, Sandra, who used to come here, was the singer at that point. And I met up with Ivan and Ronnie and Stephen and Paul, these fellas who practiced. That's the Methodist Church Hall in Glasgow.
Oh,
and they were called Pathway to begin with, and then Ronnie became the lead singer, and we travelled all round. But just being with young Christians was such a great thing, because whenever you're 14, you need to have that company of Christians, just to help you in your Christian life. And I'm about 18, 19 here, meeting these fellas who were singing because they wanted to share the gospel was a real help. and proceeding on as a Christian. Yeah.
Yep, the girl. I see Gillian wincing. Oh, look at her.
Isn't she lovely?
She is.
Isn't she though?
She.
The orangey picture is the very first picture I have of Gillian I ever have. I was so glad to get it. Ronnie and Janet, who aren't here tonight, but from the church, they asked us to babysit. And so that was an opening.
Must have been a really old phone, that, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Really old. One of the old first Nokias or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so young and so long ago. And there you are, one of the hall now. Yeah, I'm sure you could see a few faces in there you recognise.
Yeah. There'll be a few people you recognise there, all right.
Oh, aye.
And that's before if you look at the hall, that's before we expanded this little bit out.
There's a young Gordon there.
There is a young Gordon.
There he is. And is that Gina?
That's Jean Fitzgerald there,
yeah,
handing
yeah.
out sandwiches. But if you look in the centre, there's an interesting part of this photograph, Joan.
Right.
I don't know if I said this to you, but in the middle you can see Gillian with like a white frill round.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We're sort of a thing and not really a thing, and I'm sort of interested in all this. But my mum is sitting a couple beside her, and she's looking at me with that mother's look.
This is the one.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Gillian, you were earmarked long ago before.
And she said afterwards, "Oh, I knew the way you were taking that picture, what you were really about." So, because this is really where Gillian and I developed our relationship was in the youth focus, and in this little hub. Gillian went to a different in Port of Bogey, New Road, but she used to come here on a Friday night, and it was
the youth fellowship.
Yeah. So.
Oh, here we are.
And that's just some pictures. That's
Ivan's mum.
That's Ivan McFerrin's mum, Violet McFerrin, and we called around the bike. So we've been on the bike. We might be out on the bike now and again and take a wee trip. And Gillian's very good. And actually, after I had a bike accident, my friends at work all said, "Well, that's the last your wife ever will get on the bike with you." But after my wrist had healed up because I broke it again, which wasn't the last time. But anyway, Gillian said to me one time, do you ever think of going on a motorcycle trip to the Isle of Man? So she hadn't given up, So yeah, we still travel about.
Interesting story about accidents and motorbikes.
Yeah.
I seem to remember a concrete lane. 2 motorbikes involved, and I was on one of them, and I ended off it on the concrete.
It must have been that other Egypt trying to pass you.
It was this boy here. I was on the right, he was on the left, and we're racing up this lane, which was about a quarter of a mile long. I'm looking around to see where he is, and I'm almost on the hedge. He's coming up here, hits my handlebars, bike flies around, head over heels, skin clean off my arms. That's where he learned how to ride a motorbike. Anyway, yes. Yeah. So you've loved motorbikes ever since then?
Oh, yeah, I enjoy them.
Now, work-wise, Ivan?
Well, at school. It started in school. I did A-level art, and there was a darkroom, but nobody used it. The science side of the school, chemistry, they had the darkroom as well, and they did most of the photography. But my art teacher was a bit annoyed. He thought it was an artistic thing, not a scientific thing.
Right.
And I was interested in photography already, and he offered me the darkroom, and he would pay for the chemicals. And there was an enlarger and everything then. It was all darkrooms then, obviously. And so I ended up taking all the school sports photographs. That's the...
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is that anything in particular?
First 11, that's the first 11 playing on their way to the rugby schools cup final. Esther, you remember that? So, yeah. And actually, one of the fellas jumping up, a friend of mine, Philip Matthews, went on to be the captain of the Irish rugby team.
Yeah, I remember him.
Most capped Irish rugby, Irish captain, yeah. So yeah, I took an interest in photography.
Yeah. And you've been there ever since now. What was going on there, Ivan?
That was
top
a beard.
left.
A beard?
Is that what that was? Yeah. You look quite there. It actually suits you then.
Yeah.
And now, that wasn't your first car though, sure it wasn't?
No,
You
but I
had
had a lot of
Mini
minis.
before that.
Minis,
You
yeah.
were very
lots
into
of
your minis back then. Interesting story about the DeLorean car though.
Yes, oh, you mean about the movie? Oh, yeah.
Did you know he's got his name on the credits? Well, of Back to the Future, but it should be on the credits.
the company I worked for, Cranmore Photography, we had the rights to photograph anything inside the DeLorean factory and all the rights to all the car photographs.
Yeah.
So any photographs, still photographs that were taken of the DeLorean car, we photographed the factory right from the first spade went in till it was finished being built. We did all the progress photography and we did all the advertising and commercial photography for the car. And interestingly, one day I was watching the start of Back to the Future, which features a DeLorean, and there's my photographs that they have used in the opening titles. So if you ever see that film, you can think, oh, I know who took those pictures. Yeah.
You didn't get any money out of it though, did you?
Well, just whatever. Yeah, no, it was the boss, it was the firm, you know.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So, oh yes, now fire brigade has been a big part of your life as well, and
Yeah, that's my daytime work and my part-time work. So,
yeah,
although my part-time is less, but anyway. Yeah, I work for the government in research photography, so that's me doing some stuff outdoors with high-speed photography at the top left there, and at the bottom.
bottom left was what's that about?
Well, when there was dark rooms, you had big processing things, and I was forever flooding it. I was washing it out, so they bought me a pair of flippers, a snorkel, and a mask to make a point, and I didn't flood the floor anymore after that. And I'm in the fire service too.
Dear.
So 43 years working in government service and 32 in the fire service.
Yeah, the fire service has been, I mean, you've seen a lot of stuff that goes on there,
Yeah.
and it must be hard at times.
Yeah, but one of the reasons I joined the fire service was to get to know local men, because we were joining up in a Christian way, and also there's nothing better. I mean, the great model for a Christian is Christ, and He is a saviour, and it's a great thing to, in some little way, model even that side of salvation, where He would
Saving lives.
you know, and it gives opportunities when people are at their worst and in their worst dramas in life to draw alongside and offer maybe a little word, you know.
Yeah, but it must be hard because, you know, there's some lives you can't save,
Yeah,
and
that happens,
some terrible things have happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. Now here we are. Here we are, teaching Gillian how to drive.
Yeah, well, this is us on our honeymoon, and there's that white car that you and I put the engine in,
Yeah.
and Derek and I painted in his garage.
Hand painted or sprayed?
Sprayed, but the paint didn't harden very well, and whenever we're getting married, people wrote lipstick on the side of it, and it never really came off. But anyway,
I remember that from my car. Mine, well, with lipstick on a vinyl roof, never came off. But yeah, and here we are in more recent times.
Yeah, that's all four of our children who are, of course, still our children, but grown up with families and so on, and you know them all, I'm sure.
Lovely photograph.
Yeah, and
There we are.
managed to get 3 of them married off. You know, I was speaking to Eric Cardy in Scrabo Hall, but whenever they were just getting married, you know, and one after the other, he said, "Have you got empty nest syndrome yet, Ivan?" and I said, "Yeah, well, it is. Gillian and I are, you know, just Katie at home now, and it's, you know." And he said, "Well, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't worry about it. They'll soon be back with reinforcements."
He was right. He was right.
So here's some of the reinforcements. Yeah.
There we are.
And here they
That's
are
a quiet
tonight.
day
Too.
in Ivan's house. Lovely, and then you'll notice there, because he wasn't born at the time, so Janet's put a young Reuben in,
We've put wee
the
Reuben
latest
in.
member of the family, so that was lovely.
Yeah, so they're delight. Of course, 5 grandchildren and one on the way, which is exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, you're never going to get a rest. But there you go. Lovely. Here we are. Now here's a few. This is
Yeah, for 28 years we ran a youth outreach, children's outreach, Link 1 and Link 2.
Yeah.
And some of the folks in this church too, Claire and Janet and all different ones, Big John and others, a whole lot helped out in that for about 28 years, and that was a real blessing. But then folk get up and go to university and things, and we sort of ran out of later, so we decided it was time to stop it.
Yeah.
God has His time for things, and it's just knowing to know. It's getting to know when God has said, "Well, you've done that now. That's that time. That chapter finished." But it was tremendous experience. It involved SU camps as well as a leader. It was great.
yeah. So,
These are my last comments, really.
right, well, that, what is that? I will build my church. What's going on there?
Well, there's three
where is
pictures here, and I just want to sort of, as it were, leave three sort of maybe things in your mind as I think we all have our stories, you know, and how God works in our lives. And I'm just aware of the time, but I'll not keep you too long. And one of them is, well, I have a picture there of the twins in a buggy, and Rebecca, and Katie's going to come along soon. And Gillian said to me the other day, whenever we were looking after a couple of grandchildren, she said, "You know, you used to leave me before these and go to work every day." You know? And it really, of course, bringing up children is a really busy thing. You know, it's a very busy time for couples. But Alec Courtney, who was a lovely man, he's come down here to speak, he said to Gillian one time, he said, as we were having our first, I think it was, Gillian, Rebecca, having the twins, and he said, as I think it struck Gillian and me, he said to Gillian, "Now listen, you're going to be very busy with children, but don't hold him back from being involved in the Lord's work." Now, that was a big, big thing for a wife to do, and for a mother to do. To take on, I mean, if I'm away speaking at a youth weekend, or away speaking at Link, or doing different things in church, coming to the prayer meeting, and those things, you might think, well, why don't you just stay and help me? And Gillian would say, remembering that, she would, without any, without any regret, she saw that as a service to let her husband do a service.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And men who are involved in service can't do it without women who are involved in service.
Yeah.
And you know, they say behind every good man's a better woman, and you know, that's just true.
I would believe that myself. Yeah.
So, if you know, just say that to young men, really, maybe if you're watching tonight too, and young women, that was a good piece of advice. And then we've been involved in the church. Obviously, I'm now in the eldership, but this was whenever we were moving the porta cabin out the back, and we've now got that great. We're so pleased and so thankful to God. We've got the sports hall, but building the church isn't just about the external building. It's about getting involved in people's lives, and we all need to do that as a church, you know, as Christians, to get involved in people's lives and to know and to help and encourage, because it's His church. But the last thing, and I want to sort of make this as a challenge, if that's all right. You and I and John and Smiler and Derek and others were climbing over the Southern Upland Way. We used to hike a lot.
I remember that well. Mm-hmm.
And this was the radar station that picked up in the 21st of December 1988. I don't know if you know what happened then, but it was an aircraft fell out of the sky and it crashed into the village of Lockerbie. It had been blown up by a terrorist bomb. And 259 people on that aircraft lost their lives, and 11 people in the village. And this is us walking by. We actually met a man who had been a firefighter later on in that walk, and had helped to try and rescue, well, that wasn't rescue, recovery. But I was just thinking of a value system, that a man would place a bomb in an aircraft and kill people made in the image of God. You know, and we live in a country where we had people killers who killed people for a cause. What kind of value system is that? And in my bedroom as a wee boy, and I think this has always spoke to me as a wee boy, there was a picture I got in Sunday school. And I've said this before, it was a picture like of a castle wall or something. I never could quite work it out. It was a wall that went down to like a moat or a lake or something. That was the background picture, but the words were from Mark chapter 8. For what should it profit a man if he should gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And that's how God values each individual human being, made in the image of God. As I say, in Lockerbie, you think of all these lives that have been lost through terrorism, people killing, people murdering, and putting no value to a human soul. And God says, well, what does it profit a man? If he should get whatever he wants, get the way he wants, get the things he wants, but lose his own soul, lose her own soul. Yeah. And God's value system I don't think we value our own souls the way God values our own souls. Because God made us in His image. He made us as eternal beings. We'll pass this scene of time, but we're going to live forever. And God values us with such preciousness that He gave Jesus Christ, His Son, for us. One of the hymns we sang tonight, John, was, I have decided to follow Jesus. To me, that's like a mantra for my life. There'll be times in our lives as Christians when it might be tough, when you might be against the wall, when you have doubts, when you're not having your prayers answered. And then it's in those days that I sing that little hymn to myself. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. Because His value system is that I'm precious to Him. And He's precious to me because what He did for me. And for what He's done for all of us. And that's what I would leave with the folks tonight, that you are precious to Him. Absolutely. And maybe if there is someone watching or here doesn't realise just how precious they are to God, that they should give their lives to Him and say, I have decided to follow Jesus.
Yeah. That's lovely. And thank you very much.